The city looked harmless from 42 floors up. Seattle glittered under a curtain of November rain light smeared across the glass like streaks of paint. The sound was only a soft hiss against the windows, the kind of white noise people paid apps to imitate. From her corner office, Veronica Hale could see the ferries crawling across the black water, the highway a slow vein of red and white. Her reflection hovered in the glass, blonde hair pulled into a low twist that never loosened charcoal suit, pressed sharp expression controlled. The light from her monitors cut into the darkness behind her, turning her eyes the same cool blue as the code she lived in. On the desk, 3 screens glowed with numbers and charts, revenue curves, client growth projections, a forecast that until this afternoon had made investors purr. Veronica clicked through rows of butter lips pressed together. One red line cut across the field of green. Asia Fund performance down. She had already drafted the email that would end a regional director's career. It sat open on a side monitor, cursor blinking patiently after the sentence. Given recent performance and strategic misalignment, we will be moving in a different direction. She reread the message, searching for any trace of softness. There was none. Good. Her assistant Mark stood in the doorway, hesitant but trying not to show it. You wanted the revised board deck, Veronica. He held a tablet like an offering. His tie was slightly crooked. It bothered her more than it should. Put it there, she said without looking away from the screen. And update slide 17. The revenue guidance is already obsolete. Mark stepped in, throat working. You know the time, right? The time does not affect the numbers, Veronica said. It kind of affects humans, he tried. It is almost 11. You have been here since 6 this morning. I have a chair, she said, and coffee. That is more than what most people take into battle. Mark gave a small huff that might have been a laugh. You have not left before midnight in 3 months. Exaggeration, she replied. There was that Sunday. You called me at 1 in the morning on that Sunday. Then I left before midnight, she said, for a while. He looked at her, something like concern flickering behind his glasses. I can finish the deck, he offered. You could go home. Try seeing your apartment in the daylight once. Veronica clicked send on the termination email. The whoosh of it leaving felt cleaner than any apology. Feelings are liabilities, Mark, she said, still watching the screen. You know that. He rolled his eyes lightly, the way only someone who had worked for her for 6 years dared. That line again. It is not a line, it is policy. And how is the policy working out for you? She did not answer. He took the hint, turned to go. At the doorway, he paused. Logan said he wanted to brief you on some security updates tomorrow. Something about new patterns on the edge firewalls. Tomorrow, she said. I am not in the mood for doomsday tonight. Rain traced thin streams down the glass. She caught her own outline again. For a second, she saw a younger girl in that reflection. Same pale hair, same sharp jaw, in a different office. Her father's this time, shelves lined with framed deals and photos from conferences. You cannot let them see you need them, Ronnie, he had said once, his hand heavy on her small shoulder. The moment you need someone, they own you. Remember that. She remembered. She had built a company around it. Hale Quantum Systems had started in a 2-room space with second-hand desks and a rented server rack. Now it filled 23 floors of this tower, guarding digital assets for banks and hedge funds that moved more money in a day than some countries saw in a year. From up here, it felt stable, inevitable, almost permanent. Her phone buzzed on the desk screen, lighting up with her mother's name. Veronica glanced at it, watched it vibrate itself toward the edge of a stack of contracts, then pressed the button to silence it. She knew the rhythm of those calls. How are you? You look tired on TV. Are you eating? When are you visiting? You need someone. I worry. It was easier to send flowers on birthdays and let voicemail handle the rest. Her office door was still half open. Through it, she could see the quiet stretch of the executive floor. Frosted glass, muted carpet, the glow from an illuminated logo that read Hale Quantum Systems, pulsing faintly in the dark like a heartbeat. She turned back to the board deck, scrolling through projected acquisition targets. Europe, Singapore, Sao Paulo. Seattle had always been a compromise. Close enough to the big money on the coasts, but still comfortably gray and distant. It let her focus. Work was simpler than people. Code made sense. Markets made sense. People did not. On the central screen, a small notification popped up in the corner, almost shy. Security anomaly detected in outbound traffic. Severity medium. Veronica flicked it away with a keystroke, filing it under Logan's problem for the morning. There were always anomalies. That was why she paid for a top-tier cyber team. Her job was to make sure the money kept flowing, not to worry about every blip on a graph. Mark appeared again, almost colliding with the frame as he stopped himself. "Sorry," he said, a little breathless. "Logan is on his way up. He said he needs to see you in person." Veronica frowned. "He knows how to use email." "Yeah, he said it is not an email thing." Mark swallowed. "He looks off." As if summoned, Logan Pierce stepped into view, suit jacket, unbuttoned tie, pulled, loosened a sheet of dampness at his hairline that had nothing to do with the rain outside. Veronica straightened in her chair, annoyance and a prickle of something else sliding into place. "Logan, you are interrupting my favorite activity, which is firing people who disappoint me." He did not smile. His usual dry wit was gone. His face had the color of paper left in a window for too many summers. "We have a problem," he said. "We always have a problem. That is why I sign your checks." "This one is not on a slide," he replied. "You need to see it." Something in his voice made Mark step back, as if instinctively giving space. Veronica's annoyance cooled. She locked her screens, rose, and reached for her jacket. "Security breach," she guessed. "Another bored kid trying to poke our sandbox." Logan shook his head. "Bored kids do not reroute $800 million of test transactions in 9 minutes. The hum of the building seemed to quiet all at once. The rain still whispered on the glass, but inside the air sharpened. Veronica picked up her phone, pocketed it, and walked past them both. "Show me," she said. They walked down the corridor past the wall of glass that overlooked to the open floors below. From here, she could see rows of workstations on the operations level, most of them empty at this hour. The few that were occupied glowed in patches of blue light, like small islands in a dark sea. As the elevator doors closed around them, Veronica watched her own reflection again, doubled against Logan's, against the dim outline of the logo behind. From the outside, Hale Quantum Systems looked unbreakable. Like the glass that wrapped her office, it looked solid, strong, untouchable. The elevator doors opened on the security floor. The hallway here was brighter, colder, lined with server room doors and card readers. The lights above flickered once, a tiny stutter that most people would not notice. Veronica noticed. "Power glitch?" she asked. Logan shook his head. "Not power." He swiped his badge at the last door on the right. The reader beeped green and the lock clicked open. The sound of keyboards and overlapping voices rushed out to meet her as she stepped inside the war room for the first time that night. The wall screens were all red. Noise hit her first. The war room was never truly quiet, not even at 3 in the morning, but this was different. Voices overlapped in sharp bursts. Keys clacked in frantic rhythms. Someone cursed under their breath. The air smelled like burnt coffee, cold electronics, and fear that had not had time to settle. Rows of workstations filled the space, arranged in a wide arc facing the front wall of screens. Tonight, every one of those screens glowed an angry, pulsing red. Status boxes flashed across them, lines of text updating too quickly to read at a glance. Critical outbound anomaly. Fund transfer alert. Unauthorized transaction path. On one screen, a graph showed a vertical drop like a cliff. On another, a map of the world blinked with red points at every major financial center that Hale Quantum touched. Veronica stepped forward, the click of her heels cutting through the blur of sound. Conversation stuttered and dipped as people noticed her. Heads turned, the room straightened by instinct. "Status," she said. Logan moved to the central console, fingers flying across his keyboard. His usual casual posture was gone. His shoulders were tight, his jaw clenched. "We detected abnormal outbound traffic 15 minutes ago," he said. "At first it looked like a spike in test transactions. That is common on Tuesdays. Then we noticed the routing tables. They were not ours." Veronica watched the primary screen as he spoke. A live counter ticked up in the corner, digits rolling. 1 to 80,000 to 1,000 at risk. "You quarantined the affected nodes?" she said. "We tried." His voice roughened on the word. "It is not sticking. Every containment we deploy, the system rewrites around it." A young woman at the far left station turned in her chair. "It is not just evading signatures," she said. "It is changing its own, like it knows what we are doing." Her badge read Priya Shah. Dark hair pulled back in a messy knot, blue light reflecting off tired eyes. "Signature morphing is not new," Veronica said. "This is more than morphing," Priya replied. She pointed at a rolling column of hex and symbols. Every 37 to 40 seconds, the payload re-encrypts with a different pattern, not just random, iterative. It keeps the functional core and scrambles the surface in ways that invalidate our filters. "So, it is learning?" Mark murmured at her shoulder. "It is behaving like something that has a goal," Logan said. "That goal appears to be to move client assets into a mesh of shadow accounts." The live counter ticked again. 160,000 at risk. Veronica felt a cold line trace the back of her neck. She did not let it reach her face. Where did it enter? She asked. Edge Gateway 3, Logan said. At least that is where we first saw the anomaly. Could be earlier. Priya shook her head. It is piggybacking on legitimate calls. We cannot trace the original injection point without losing time, and we do not have time. A man in his 50s at the second row lifted his gaze from his console. Gray in his beard, deep lines around his eyes. His badge read Harris Lee. We have isolated segments, Harris said. Cut traffic to non-essential nodes. The worm still propagates inside the core cluster. It is like smoke in a sealed room. Kill the room, Veronica said. Shut down the core cluster. We cannot, Harris said. Not without freezing all client access. And if we do that with this much money in motion, we will trigger a regulatory avalanche. Our best case then is bankruptcy. Veronica stared at the numbers on the screen. The world outside this room did not know yet. Their largest hedge fund client would be at a dinner in New York right now, smiling across a table, believing that their assets were safe in Hale's vaults. 18 billion, Mark whispered. Do not narrate, Veronica said quietly. His mouth closed with a soft click. The red boxes on the wall stuttered, then shifted. A large banner emerged across the top of the primary display. Phantom ORM active. Logan frowned. That is not our label. It wrote its own name, Priya said. Her attempt at humor fell flat. No one laughed. Are we dealing with a known family? Veronica asked. Has anything like this been logged in the industry feeds? We have cross-checked with every database we have access to, Harris said. Nothing like this. It is elegant. And it is new. Her gaze moved from screen to screen, code scrolled by a blur of symbols. Traffic graphs pulsed. One smaller monitor showed a simulation of the core network circles connected by lines. Most of the circles glowed red. The live counter flipped again. 220,000 at risk. How much is actually left? She asked. Logan tapped in a command. Another window appeared. Transaction IDs, timestamps, destination, account strings. Several entries glowed in yellow. A fraction, he said. The worm is in the process of constructing outbound paths. It is moving funds through internal hops, obfuscating the chain. The final exfiltration is partial. So far, we think the majority is still within infrastructure we can touch. Think, Veronica repeated. We can either chase the money down the tunnels it is digging, or we can go after the worm itself, Logan said. We cannot do both at the same time with the resources we have. Then kill the worm, she said. We are trying. Priya gestured helplessly at her screen. Every time we isolate one instance in memory and null it, another instance spawns mutated already one step ahead of the pattern we used. Harris leaned back, rubbing his temples. It is like playing chess blind, he said, and the other side knows every opening we know. The room had filled while they spoke. More staff arrived in hoodies and sneakers, hair damp from the rain badges swinging. Someone wheeled in a cart with bottled water and leftover sandwiches. No one reached for them. Veronica stood in the center, taking in the scene. She registered the tiny details because the large ones were almost too big. A coffee mug with a chipped handle, forgotten at a station. A stack of sticky notes with doodles in the corner. A sweatshirt draped over the back of a chair, abandoned when its owner moved to another console. These were her people, she reminded herself. She had hired them, or hired the people who had hired them. She paid them well to imagine impossible attacks and block them before they touched real money. Tonight, impossibility had walked in anyway. Walk me through our remaining options, she said. Silence settled for a moment. The hum of the servers pressed against the walls. We can pull the plug on the entire client-facing network, Logan said. We halt all movement, deal with the legal and reputational fallout. Or, Priya said, we keep fighting and hope we outthink something that is currently outthinking us. Is there any indication of manual control? Veronica asked. Is anyone steering this, or is it fully autonomous? We have not seen command and control traffic, Harris answered. That does not mean there is none. It could be hidden inside legitimate TLS streams. Whoever wrote this knew what they were doing. The counter ticked again. 500,000 at risk. On any normal day, $1 million meant something. Tonight the number had grown so large that it numbed. The individual millions blurred into one long fall. Veronica felt the weight of that fall in the back of her skull. She imagined headlines. She imagined board members. She imagined lawyers. More than that, she imagined something else. She saw it in snapshots. The hedging firm in New York, the pension fund in Chicago, the university endowment in Boston. People who had entrusted their numbers to Hale because she had stood in front of them in clean suits and steady eyes and said, "We are secure." She did not feel guilt, not yet. There was no time for it. There was only math and speed. She moved closer to the main console. "Logan," she said, "tell me one thing we have not tried." He hesitated at the reflexive pride of an expert who had already burned through every trick he respected. "We have thrown every known defense at it," he said. "Static analysis, behavioral, heuristic sandboxing. It adapts. We tried poisoning its environment. It rewrites the toxicity into fuel. So, we stop thinking in terms of known defenses," she said. "We stop assuming we are smarter, and we start assuming it is. What do you do when you cannot pin something in place?" Priya frowned at her screen. "You track what it leaves behind," she said slowly. "Side channel traces, latency patterns, cache residue." "We are already scraping logs," Harris said. "Logs are late," Priya replied. "I mean live state, memory artifacts, the digital equivalent of footprints in wet concrete." "Can we do it?" Veronica asked. "We can try," Priya said. "We are rewriting tools on the fly." The tension in the room tightened and then shifted. Despair edged toward a brittle kind of focus. Hands moved faster on keys. New code windows opened. Someone started a shared session on the central screen callouts appearing as they highlighted sections of memory. Veronica watched the data scroll. To her eyes, it was only noise. The meaning lived in the minds of the people at these stations. She stepped back, giving them a clear line of sight to the wall. Mark hovered near the door, his tablet hugged to his chest. "Get everyone you trust on message and PR ready," she said to him quietly. "Off-site on call. Do not tell them why yet. Just tell them the night got interesting." He nodded and left. The counter ticked. 2,940,000 at risk. 3 billion sat at the edge of a cliff. Veronica looked up at the wall of red and thought briefly of her office upstairs, of the glass window, and the city beyond. From there, the world had seemed small and far away. From here, it pressed in close, as if every light out there had turned to look at this room. "Nobody stops working," she said. "Nobody panics. We find it. We cage it. We take back what is ours." Around her, the room shifted into a new gear, the hum deepening the light from the screens, painting every face in the same cold shade of blue. 8 hours before the wall of screens went red, someone else was watching rain. Not from 42 stories up, but from a third-floor walk-up with peeling paint and a window that rattled when trucks passed. Daniel Ruiz leaned his shoulder against the kitchen counter and watched the drops chase each other down the glass. The apartment smelled like laundry detergent and the faint tomato sauce from last night. Behind him, the small TV on the counter played an old cartoon with the volume low. "Dad," a voice called from the living room. "You forgot the ears." He turned. Maya sat cross-legged on the couch, brown curls sticking out in every direction, spoon held mid-air over a bowl of oatmeal that had turned more into paste than breakfast. She squinted at the tablet propped in front of her, where a blocky little robot danced in place. "It does not need ear," Daniel said. "It is a robot." Maya pointed her spoon at him. "It needs sensors," she said. "Otherwise it walks into walls. Sensors are basically robot ears. You forgot them." On the rug, Zoe was lying on her stomach, chin propped on both hands, her own tablet open to a screen full of colored blocks and lines. Her hair was the same brown as Maya's, but straighter, pulled into 2 low ponytails. She did not look up. "He forgot to map the environment too," she said. "The bot thinks the whole world is a 5x5 grid." Daniel held up his hands. "Remind me never to interview with either of you." Maya grinned and shoveled oatmeal into her mouth. Zoe, without taking her eyes off the screen, flicked one finger and added a line of code. "The ears go here," she murmured, with a loop. On the TV, a cartoon character slipped on a banana peel and fell with a squeak. Neither girl reacted. Daniel checked the time on the cheap microwave clock. The digits flickered between 3:29 and 3:30. He had already worked a full night shift at Hale Quantum, mopping floors while the building slept. The usual routine would have put him home by dawn. The girls still snoring, then maybe a few hours of sleep before he stumbled through the rest of the day. His phone buzzed that morning while he was stacking mops in the supply closet. Miguel from day shift, voice hoarse. "I need a favor," Miguel had said. "My boy, he woke up with this cough, real bad. Can you cover for me this afternoon? Just a few hours. I would owe you forever." Daniel had looked at the clock. He had looked at the empty hallway. He had thought about saying no, about explaining how his body already felt like it had sand in all the joints. Instead, he had heard the sound of his own voice say, "Yeah, I got you. Now it was late afternoon, and he was pulling on his work jacket again. "Girls," he said, "grab your shoes." Maya's head snapped up. "We are coming with you." It was not a question. She said it the way she said, "The sky is blue." Zoe finally looked away from her screen. "You promised," she said quietly. "You said we could see where you work if Uncle Miguel ever needed help." He remembered. They had asked for weeks. What does the building look like? Does it have secret tunnels? Do the computers glow? Can we see the robots? "It is just floors and offices," Daniel said. "Not very exciting." Maya bounced off the couch and landed in front of him, eyes bright. "You clean a skyscraper?" she said. "That is literally the opposite of boring." Zoe slid her tablet into a frayed backpack, the movement neat and practiced. "We will be quiet," she said. "We will listen. We will not touch anything important." Daniel hesitated. The thought of them sitting alone in the apartment while he dragged his body through another shift made his chest tighten. They had been alone enough in the past year. There were worse places to nap than a janitor lounge. "All right," he said. "Shoes, jackets, teeth, now." Maya ran for the bathroom. "We already brushed," she yelled. "Again," he answered. She groaned but obeyed. 20 minutes later, they stepped into the lobby of Hale Quantum Systems. The building looked different in daylight. The night shift Daniel knew had dim lights and empty hallways, the occasional security guard nod. In the afternoon, the place buzzed. People in blazers and jeans crossed the marble floor, lanyards swinging phones pressed to ears. Maya craned her neck, trying to see the top of the atrium. Sunlight filtered through a glass ceiling, catching the water of a central fountain. The logo above the reception desk was polished to a mirror shine. "It is like a spaceship," she whispered. "Spaceships do not sell risk management products," Daniel said. "How do you know?" she shot back. Zoe had stopped in front of a huge digital display on one wall. It played a looped promotional video with smooth graphics. There were shots of servers, shots of people in meeting rooms, shots of abstract blue lines flowing into a shield icon. Text scrolled along the bottom. "Hale Quantum Systems, powered by Aegis Wall Protocol." Zoe read it out loud under her breath. "Aegis Wall," she said, "like the shield thing in Greek myths." Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew the lines of that logo better than the lines of his own palm. He had drawn them once on a whiteboard in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and ambition. Maya turned to him. "You worked on something like that, right?" she said. "Back in the old place." He kept his voice light. "I spilled coffee on something like that once," he said. "Come on, I have to check in." At the security desk, he flashed his badge. The guard on duty, a broad-shouldered woman named Carla, looked over the counter at the twins. "New recruits?" she asked. "Temporary interns," Daniel said. "Very temporary." Carla smiled at the girls. "You listen to your dad in there," she said. "This building is a maze." "We like mazes," Maya said. Zoe gave a small nod. Carla printed 2 visitor stickers and slid them across. Maya Ruiz, Zoe Ruiz, each stamped with a big V. The elevator ride up made Maya's ears pop. She pretended to stagger. "Altitude," she muttered. Zoe rolled her eyes, but her fingers curled a little tighter around the strap of her backpack. On the maintenance floor, the lighting was harsher, the carpet cheaper. The custodial lounge was a small room with a sagging couch, a metal table, and a coffee machine that hissed like it was in pain. "This is Mission Control," Daniel said. Maya looked around. "It is so tiny," she said. "Yeah," Daniel replied. "That is why it is called support." He knelt to be at their eye level, resting his hands on his knees. "All right," he said. "Listen to me. I need to grab supplies and check some floors. You two stay here. No wandering. Do not go exploring. Do not follow anyone. You can read or draw or argue about robot ears. I will be back before it gets dark." Maya leaned forward and solemnly tapped 2 fingers to her chest. "Scout's honor." "You were never a scout," Zoe said. "It counts in spirit," Maya replied. Zoe met Daniel's gaze, her brown eyes serious. "We will stay," she said. "We promise." He studied their faces. They were 9 years old enough to program basic games, young enough that their feet still swung when they sat in chairs. They had lived through more than some adults he knew. He wanted to shield them from everything. He knew he could not. "If you need anything," he said, pointing to a landline on the wall, "you pick up that phone and press 0. That goes to security." Maya nodded. "What if the coffee machine attacks?" she asked. "Then you run," Daniel said. "That thing has no mercy." They laughed. The sound eased something behind his ribs. He kissed the top of each head, breathed in the mix of cheap shampoo and crayons, then stood. "I will be right back," he said. They watched him leave the door, clicking shut behind him. For a while the lounge was quiet. Maya pulled a notebook from her bag and began to sketch the fountain from the lobby, adding laser beams and tiny spaceships. Zoe opened her tablet and slipped into a puzzle game that involved arranging blocks into patterns. Somewhere in the building a server hummed. Somewhere else someone raised their voice in a meeting. The sounds were distant, muffled by walls and distance. After 5 minutes, Maya paused, pencil hovering. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Zoe did not look up. "Hear what?" "That," Maya said. "Listen." Zoe pulled out one earbud and tilted her head. Beyond the thin door, beneath the hum of the building, there was a different kind of sound. Footsteps quick. Voices layered on top of each other. A tone in the overhead speakers that had not been there before. Too faint to be an alarm, but sharp enough to itch. "It is just work," Zoe said. Maya shook her head. "It feels weird," she murmured. "Like when the game music changes before something jumps at you." Zoe frowned. She slid her tablet back into her bag, the game forgotten. They both sat still, listening. The noises grew clearer. A voice, clipped and distant, said something about security. Another voice answered tight. Maya slid off the couch. "We could just look," she said. "From the door, not go anywhere." "Dad said stay," Zoe replied. "We will stay on this floor," Maya said. "We will not get lost. We will not touch anything. We just see what is happening. If it is nothing, we come back. If it is something, maybe we can tell someone." Zoe's fingers tapped against her knee in a fast rhythm. She hated breaking rules. She hated not knowing more. "You always say curiosity is a feature," Maya said softly, "not a bug." "Features can crash systems," Zoe answered. "Sometimes they fix them too." Zoe inhaled slow, then she stood. 2 minutes, she said. "We go, we look, we come back. If we see Dad, we pretend we were on a bathroom break." Maya grinned. "Deal." Zoe reached for the door handle. The metal was cool under her palm. When she turned it, the latch released with a small, clear click. The hallway outside the custodial lounge felt louder than it had any right to be. Maya stepped out, first visitor sticker crooked on her jacket. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air carried the usual mix of industrial cleaner and recycled office oxygen, but beneath it was a tension she could feel on her skin. The corridor that usually sat empty at this time now had people in it. 2 men in badges hurried past them without looking down, talking too fast. "Core cluster is spiking again. I know, I am watching the graphs." Their voices faded around the corner. Zoe pulled the door closed behind her until it latched. The click echoed in her chest. "We said 2 minutes, she reminded. "Then we should not waste them," Maya answered. They followed the sound of footsteps and voices, sneakers soft on the thin carpet. The maintenance level did not look like the glossy lobby. Exposed pipes ran along the ceiling. A vending machine buzzed near the elevators, its display cycling through pictures of chips and soda. An elevator opened, and 3 people rushed out, all in Hale Security polo shirts. One of them spoke into a radio clipped to her shoulder. "Yes, war room is fully staffed," she said. "Logan is in, Veronica is in." Maya caught the name, Veronica. She had heard it before when Dad muttered about Ms. Hale on nights he came home late. Zoe tugged her sleeve. "We are staying on this floor," Zoe said. "We promised." "The war room must be where the interesting stuff is," Maya said. "We just look, from the door." She said it, but her chest had a tight, strange feeling. The air felt like it did when a game level shifted from calm music to something with drums just before enemies appeared. Instead of taking the elevator, they headed for the stairwell. The metal door handle was cool under Zoe's fingers. She pulled it open, and the smell changed, becoming sharper, more metallic. The stairwell was concrete and steel sound bouncing off the walls. They climbed. On the next landing, a man with a laptop hugged to his chest, brushed past them, eyes somewhere else. He did not ask what 2 kids were doing on a staircase in a high-security building. His mind was clearly occupied. Maya counted the steps aloud under her breath, as if they were part of a puzzle. Zoe thought about packet routing, and how noise moved through a system. If a building was like a network, then something at the top was drawing all the traffic. On the next floor, they pushed through another door. This hallway was different. The carpet was thicker, the lighting dimmer and more precise. Glass walls lined one side, but the glass here was frosted. Doors had keycard readers instead of simple metal handles. A sign on the wall read, "Security Operations. Only authorized personnel beyond this point." Maya read it and hummed. "Looks like a boss level," she said. Zoe glanced back the way they had come. "We are already past where we said we would stay," she said. "We can see the sign from here," Maya answered. "If Dad asks, we technically did not go beyond the point." "That is not how signs work," Zoe said. Laughter bubbled up, quiet, partly nerves. The sound surprised both of them. They walked closer. Up ahead, one of the doors stood open. This one was thicker set, deeper in the wall. Above the frame in plain block letters, a label. Cyber Ops War Room. People moved in and out holding tablets, stacks of printouts, cables. The air that spilled out into the hall was cooler, edged with the faint ozone smell of electronics under stress. Maya stopped just short of the threshold. From here, she could see slices of the room inside, rows of monitors, the suggestion of a wall of screens. Zoe's hand closed on her wrist. This is where Dad said he worked, the floors around it. Exactly, Maya said. We are practically visiting his neighborhood. 2 minutes, Zoe repeated. We look, then we go. They waited for a gap in the stream of adults moving through the doorway. When it came, they slid sideways through the opening like small fish darting past a net. The war room felt colder than the hallway. Dozens of monitors cast a pale light over the space. The front wall was a patchwork of panels fused into one massive display. Tonight it glowed red and white, with status boxes, graphs, scrolling code. Maya felt the hairs on her arms lift. Zoe stopped beside her, eyes wide. This is not nothing, Zoe whispered. People were everywhere. Some sat hunched close to their screens, fingers moving so fast the keyboard sounded like rain. Others stood in small clusters, talking in low, urgent voices. A few walked between stations, checking, pointing, redirecting. At the center of it all stood a woman in a dark jacket, blonde hair twisted into an immaculate knot. Veronica Hale was exactly as the investor videos had shown her, only sharper in person. Her posture was straight, arms relaxed at her sides, but everything in her face said alert. Maya watched her for a moment. Even from a distance, the woman looked like someone used to being the axis of a room. On the front wall, numbers updated. The line marked "at risk" flipped higher. Even without knowing the full context, 9-year-old brains understood that this was a lot. That is real money, Maya breathed. That is real bad, Zoe answered. Their eyes moved to the largest patch of code on the central screen. It flowed in tight, dense lines, characters matching and shifting. A label at the top pulsed. Phantom Warm. Maya squinted. That is not one script, she said quietly. It is a lot of little ones pretending to be one. Zoe tilted her head. It is polymorphic, she replied. See the pattern. Every block keeps a core structure, but the wrapper mutations follow a cycle. 30-something seconds maybe. She did not have a timer. She did not need one. The rhythm felt like a heartbeat to her, regular enough to grasp, irregular enough to challenge. On the main floor, no one looked at the two small figures near the back wall. Everyone's attention was on their own disasters. A man at a nearby station swore softly. It just invalidated the new filter. Priya, the engineer, they had not yet met, but whose name glowed on a badge. Bin Sable, I answered without taking her eyes off the screen. Then we shift the window. Stop looking at content. Look at behavior. Maya edged forward a step. Zoe followed. We should not be here, Zoe said. Ze said. Maya nodded. We are here anyway. Something inside her, the part that could not walk past a puzzle, leaned in. She listened to the fragments of speech around them, words like stack, heap, latency, familiar yet heavier here. At the front of the room, Veronica spoke. Nobody panics. We find it. We cage it. We take back what is ours. Her voice was flat, calm in a way that carried more command than shouting ever could. For a second, Maya admired that. Then her gaze snapped back to the code. The worm's label flashed again. The pattern in its mutations repeated not exactly, but in a way that suggested someone had designed it to be beautiful in its own way. Zoe's fingers twitched at her sides as if looking for a keyboard. It is leaving traces, she whispered. In memory. It cannot not leave them. That is how computers work. Maya swallowed. Do you think they see it? She asked. The way we do. I do not know, Zoe said. They stood like that for several breaths, two small statues against the wall. The hum of the room filled their ears. A sudden voice near them made them jump. Who are you two? A man had turned in his chair. He looked like he had not slept in a while. His badge said Nick. His eyes flicked to their visitor stickers, then to the hallway behind them. You cannot be in here, he said. He did not sound angry, just exhausted. Maya opened her mouth, then closed it. We are with the cleaning crew, she blurted. Zoe winced. Our dad works here, she said quickly. He is on this floor. He told us to stay upstairs. Nick's eyebrows climbed. And you came down to the cyber war zone instead. We heard the building, Maya said. It sounded wrong. Nick stared at them for a beat, then shook his head like his brain could not make space for this too. Go back to wherever you were, he said. This is not safe for visitors. He turned back to his screen. Maya glanced at Zoe. They do not see it, she said softly. The timing, the cycle. We do not know that, Zoe replied. They are busy. They know a lot. Maya took a breath. It felt too big for her chest. We could at least ask, she said. She stepped forward, weaving between two chairs before Zoe could grab her sleeve. The gap between them stretched, then closed as Zoe hurried to catch up. They crossed the room slowly, dodging cables and rolling chairs. No one had time to stop them. On the central platform, Veronica and Logan bent over a single monitor, a cluster of others around them. Maya reached the edge of the circle and waited. For a moment, she did not exist for any of them. She was too short to clear most shoulders. All she could see of the main screen was the bottom corner where the counter rolled higher. Zoe stepped up beside her. "Maya," she whispered, "maybe we should not." Maya reached up and tapped the sleeve of Veronica's jacket. It was a small touch, barely a brush, but Veronica felt it. She straightened and turned to see who had broken the invisible barrier around her. Her gaze fell on two girls with matching brown eyes and visitor stickers. For the first time that night, surprise cut clean through the line of control on Veronica Hale's face. "Who are you?" she asked. "DZ sucked." Her tone was sharp but not cruel. Maya swallowed. "We think we know what is wrong," she said. "And we think we can help." For a second, no one answered. The circle around Veronica was a wall of shoulders and screens. Logan frowned, already turning to wave security over, but something in Veronica's expression made him stop. She looked at Maya, then at Zoe. Two kids in sneakers, visitor stickers peeling at the corners, hair frizzing in the dry recycled air. Out of place in every possible way. "You think you can help?" Veronica said. Veronica said. Maya nodded. Her throat felt dry, but the words came anyway. "The thing on the screen," she said. "The worm. It is changing, but it is not random." Zoe's gaze flicked to the wall of code, then back. "It has a cycle," she said quietly. "Keep watching long enough and you can see it." Logan let out a breath that was almost a laugh, except there was no humor in it. "This is a secure operations center," he said. "We do not take input from visiting minors." He looked to Veronica, expecting her to agree. Her jaw tightened. "Where is your parent?" she asked. "Our dad works here," Maya said quickly. "He is on staff." "In which department?" Veronica asked. "Cleaning," Zoe answered. "Night shift. He is covering someone's afternoon today." Something flashed across a few faces nearby. A different kind of discomfort layered on top of the current one. "So you slipped out of wherever he put you and came to the most restricted room in the building," Logan said. "Great." "It sounded wrong," Maya said. "The building. Like when the sound design in a game shifts before a boss fight. We followed it." Priya pinched the bridge of her nose. "We are in the middle of losing $3 billion, she said. "This is not a field trip." Maya took a step closer to the central console. "We know polymorphic code," she said. "We have played with it. Small scale," she added quickly. "Not like this. We would not do this." Zoe's voice slipped in beside hers, calm and low. "It is re-encrypting every 37 seconds, she said. "Maybe plus or minus 3. The mutations look different, but there is a spine that repeats. If you track that instead of its surface, you could predict where it will reappear in memory." Harris turned his head at that. His eyes narrowed, the tiredness in them momentarily overshadowed by professional curiosity. "You are talking about side channel analysis," he said slowly, "on live memory." Zoe nodded once. "In a way," she said. "Not exactly the way you mean it, I think, but close." Veronica watched the exchange. The room seemed to have squeezed tighter sound, pulling toward this small knot of people. "Age," she said. "9, Maya said. "9, Zoe echoed. Logan let out a breath. "They should not be here," he said. "We can have security escort them out. We do not have time for this." Veronica looked back at the wall of screens. The counter in the corner ticked up again. 320,000 at risk. Time did a strange thing in her head. It stretched and snapped and then settled. In that space she saw the choices lined up. Trust only the framework she knew. Keep 30 experts grinding forward along the same lines. Or let 2 unknown variables touch the system that kept her company alive. Her father liked controlled experiments. He liked variables he could predict. He would have marched these girls out of the room without a second thought. "Tell me in one sentence," she said, turning back to Maya and Zoe. "What would you do right now that we are not already doing?" Maya looked at Zoe. "Track the ghost instead of the body," Zoe said. Harris blinked. "Explain," he said. "The live instances are smart," Zoe said. "They keep changing, but every time they move, they stir up the same dust. Cache traces, timing noise, tiny jumps in memory use. If you chart only that noise, you get a path. You can guess the next move and build the trap before it gets there." She glanced at the main screen. Right now you are trying to grab its hands, she said. We would grab its shadow. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Veronica turned to Priya. Can we attempt that? She asked. Priya's eyes were on Zoe. Not like that, she said. We have tools that touch on similar concepts, but this framing is new. It would take time. Time we do not have, Logan said. Maya lifted her chin. We could write it, she said. Fast. Logan stared at her. You write code, he said. On what? Tablets and school laptops. On whatever we can get our hands on, Maya said. Zoe's mouth pressed into a line. We know what we are asking, she said. We know this sounds ridiculous, but you are stuck. We can see that. You are running in loops. Let us try. You can watch every keystroke. Harris let out a low breath. If they mess up, we pull the plug, he said to no one in particular. We should have pulled it already. Logan shook it. So unrealistic. Shook his corridors. Veronica, this is absurd. So, is losing $3 billion to code that writes its own name on our servers? Veronica said. Absurdity seems to be the theme of the evening. She looked directly at Maya, then at Zoe. One station, she said. You do not touch live systems directly until someone here has eyes on your logic. The second any of my people tells you to stop, you stop. Clear. Clear, Maya said. Yes, ma'am, Zoe added. Logan swore under his breath. Veronica pointed to an empty desk off to the side where a junior analyst had jumped up to join a cluster. There, she said. Maya moved like a spring released. Zoe followed quieter, but no less fast. They slid into the chairs. The keyboard felt large under their smaller hands, but the keys responded all the same. The monitor came alive with a blank editor and a set of windows showing clone snapshots of the core cluster's memory spaces. Priya appeared behind them with a cable in hand. I am mirroring a subset of live memory here, she said. Read only. You cannot write to it. If you need a sandbox, you tell me, and I will spin one. Got it, Zoe said. Her eyes swept the data in front of her. Numbers and letters a blur for anyone else sorted themselves into patterns in her mind. Maya opened a fresh script file. All right, she said softly. Shadow Walker. Zoe spoke just loud enough for her sister to hear. Focus on access timing, she said. Look for spikes that match the worm's known mutating windows. We chart those first. Maya's fingers began to move. They did not type the way the adults did in bursts and pauses while thinking. Their hands had a different rhythm, like two musicians improvising on a shared theme. Maya wrote scaffolding called Functions Left Comments. Zoe watched the memory view rattled off offsets and intervals. Skip that region, Zoe murmured. Too noisy. Go to the shared buffers for the transaction pool. That is where it is dancing. Lines of code formed. A loop that slid over memory blocks, sampling changes at microsecond intervals. A lightweight watcher that collected only minimal metadata small enough that it would not disturb what it was measuring. Harris leaned over a nearby station mirroring their screen to his own. His brows knitted. They are building a statistical signature, he said, on side effects only. Logan hovered with his arms crossed, ready to call it off if any red flag appeared. Maya added a visualization module, crude but functional. A scrolling band appeared at the bottom of the screen, showing spikes as thin vertical lines. There, Zoe said, pointing. See the clusters, every 37 seconds. The worm mutates on a tick, but it has to set up the move before it flips. That setup is slower. We hook into that. Maya adjusted the code. Elastic window around the predicted event, she said. No hard edges, so it cannot see where we are watching. Within a minute, the watcher started to mark not just where the worm had been, but where it was about to turn up. Little flags appeared ahead of the live movements. Priya, watching over their shoulders, sucked in a breath. They are predicting it, she said. By a few milliseconds, but still. We can inject a trap into those regions, Zoe said. A lightweight cage, not a big bulky thing, just a thin shell that redirects execution into a loop we control. We have thrown loop traps at it already, Logan said. Static ones, Zoe replied. They sit and wait at known addresses. This would move with it, a dynamic wrapper that piggybacks on its own path. Harris nodded slowly. Ghost cage, he said. We trap its shadow, not the worm itself. Name later, Maya said. Cage now. The room around them had quieted without anyone giving a signal. People had turned in their chairs watching the girl's screen. The counter still ticked, but the clicks between increases felt longer. 360,000 at risk. Priya keyed in a command at her own station, opening a pipe to the live environment. I can deploy your shellcode in a limited scope, she said. One segment of the core. If it destabilizes anything, I kill it instantly. Ready? Maya said. She and Zoe shared a quick look. It was short and dense, a whole conversation in a glance. Then Maya pasted the generated shell hook into the deployment window Priya had opened. Priya pushed it to the live segment. For a second, nothing changed. Then the visualization band at the bottom of their screen lit up. The predicted spikes aligned with the new shell's markers. A cluster of red indicators appeared where the worm began its next mutation round. It is touching the shell, Zoe said. On the main wall, one of the core's maps shifted. A group of circles that had been red turned amber, then pale. It is stuck, Harris breathed. The worm's label flickered. The rate of new mutations slowed, then stuttered, as more of its instances ran headfirst into invisible cages that bent their execution flow back into harmless loops. Across the front wall, status boxes began to flip from critical to contained. The live counter froze. 380,000 at risk. Another window blinked open beneath it. Funds, recoverable 100%. The silence that followed was not empty. It felt like the moment after a held breath. Then someone laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. It broke whatever spell had held the room in place. Chairs scraped back, voices rose. A few people clapped sudden and loud. Priya whooped, the sound bouncing off the ceiling. We have it, she said. We have the thing, it is caged. Logan sagged against a console hand over his face. When he dropped it, his eyes were wet. Start the rollback procedures, he said hoarsely. Get every cent parked back where it belongs. Harris was already typing. Veronica stood very still in the middle of the noise. Her gaze was on the wall, on the clean lines of green beginning to reappear among the red. The worst of the fall had stopped. She turned to the girls. Maya had pulled her hands away from the keyboard as if afraid to jinx what had happened. Zoe sat very straight, fingers curled into the edge of the desk. You did that, Veronica said. We helped, Zoe said softly. Your people did a lot. They had all the parts. We just rearranged them. Maya's eyes were bright with leftover adrenaline. It left prints, she said. You just had to look where the light was not. Veronica looked at them, as if seeing them properly for the first time. Not just kids with stickers, but something else. Something that did not fit cleanly into any category she had prepared for. Thank you, she said. The words came out rougher than she intended. Before she could say anything more, a voice cut through the noise from the doorway. Maya. It was a man's voice, tight and frayed at the edges. Zoe. Heads turned. A few people moved aside. A man in a gray custodial uniform stood just inside the war room, a cart of cleaning supplies abandoned behind him. His hair was mussed, as if he had been running his hands through it. His gaze locked on the two small figures at the workstation. His face had gone very, very pale. What are you doing? He said. Maya spun in her chair so fast it squeaked. Dad? She said. Zoe's hands dropped from the keyboard. The color drained from her face the way it had from his. For a moment, the war room blurred into the background. The red screens, the half-collapsed crisis, the hum of servers all receded. There was only Daniel and the two girls he had left in a small room with a broken couch and a promise. He crossed the floor in long strides, barely aware that he was moving through a circle of executives and engineers who suddenly had nothing to say. Someone nudged a rolling chair out of his path. A cable tugged taut, then dropped behind him. Maya slid off her seat visitor sticker, catching on the desk edge and crumpling. She stepped toward him, words tumbling. We are sorry, she said. We were supposed to stay. We just wanted to see, Zoe said, voice small. We heard the noises. The building felt wrong. Daniel stopped in front of them. Up close, they could see the way his chest moved too fast under the gray uniform, the way his hand gripped the edge of the desk until his knuckles whitened. His eyes flicked from one face to the other, checking for injuries as if the code on the screens could have physically cut them. Are you hurt? He asked. Sicked. Both girls shook their heads. No, Maya said. We are okay. We helped, Zoe added, then flinched at her own words as if realizing how they might sound. Daniel exhaled. The air left him in a rough rush. His shoulders dropped a fraction. You were supposed to be in the lounge, he said. The words were quiet, more statement than scolding. We know, Maya said. We were, for a while. We heard people running, Zoe said. The sounds got weird. We thought maybe we could see what was happening, just to know. Maya swallowed. And then we saw the screens, she said, and the worm, and we could see its pattern. We did not plan. She trailed off, unable to find the right end for that sentence. The room watched them silent. The crisis glow tinted everything. We are sorry, Zoe said again. Tears pushed at the edges of her eyes, but she blinked them back. We did not mean to cause trouble, for you or for them. Daniel looked at Zoe, at the way her chin trembled while she tried to keep her voice steady, at Maya, who stood with her jaw lifted, bracing for anger. He thought about late nights at the old company, teaching Rachel how to read his code, showing her the joy in solving something naughty and intricate. He thought about the years since the accident, about hiding laptops in closets, about redirecting conversation, when the girls' excitement for algorithms veered too close to his old world. He realized what they were bracing for. You thought I would be mad because you did what you are good at, he said softly. Maya's mouth twitched. You told us not to play with that kind of code, she said. I told you not to build anything that could hurt people, he replied. You did the opposite. He let go of the desk. Then he did something that made a few people in the room look down, suddenly feeling like intruders. He dropped to one knee and pulled both of them into his arms. The girls clutched at his shoulders, fingers knotting in the rough fabric of his uniform. For a second, they were all pressed together in a tight tangle, the rest of the room dissolving around them. I am not mad, he said, his voice thick. I am terrified, but I am not mad. Maya sniffed against his shoulder. We left where you told us to stay, she said. I should not have put you in a box and expected you to stay small to keep me comfortable, he said. Zoe pulled back enough to look at him. We thought if we liked the same things you did, she whispered, it would hurt you. Something flickered across his face. A crack, and behind it the shadow of a year of quiet, gnawing guilt. I am sorry I made you think that, he said. His thumb brushed a tear off Zoe's cheek. I am sorry I let my own pain tell you that curiosity was dangerous. He pressed his forehead briefly to Maya's. I am proud of you, he said. You hear me? I am so proud of you, I do not know what to do with it. Maya's breath hitched. The tension in her shoulders loosened all at once. She let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. We thought you would be angry, she said. Never for this, he replied. Behind them, someone cleared a throat, a small sound that tried and failed not to be noticed. Daniel remembered where they were. He stood keeping a hand on each girl's shoulder, and finally looked around. Executives, engineers, screens covered in code that was supposed to be impossible. And in the middle of that, Veronica Hale watching them with a look he could not quite read. Mr. Regan, Ridal, she said. The formal last name sounded odd applied to him in this room. Usually he was just Daniel, or Night Shift, or the silhouette pushing a mop past glass walls at hours when most people were asleep. I am sorry, he said quickly. They were not supposed to be up here. I will get them out of your way. The man with the gray beard, Harris, squinted at him. His gaze dropped to Daniel's badge, then to his face again. Recognition sparked faint at first, then bright. Hold on, Harris said. He stepped closer as if needing to check the details up close. Daniel Ruiz, he said. Daniel winced. Just Daniel, he replied. Maintenance. Harris shook his head slowly. You are from Sentinel Dynamics, he said. You are the one who architected the early versions of Aegis Wall. Conversations nearby stuttered. A few people who had been turning back to their stations turned again. Veronica's eyes narrowed, interested in a new way. Logan frowned. Wait, he said. That Daniel Ruiz? Harris nodded. The papers in '09, he said. The adaptive firewall model everyone cited. The internal white paper that came out of Sentinels R and D. That was you. Daniel's jaw set. It was a team, he said. It was never just one person. But your name was on the spec, Harris replied. You disappeared after the accident. People wondered. The word hung there uninvited. Accident. Veronica caught it. She filed it away but did not press. You wrote code that changed how people thought about defense, Harris said. And you have been mopping floors in my building. In my building? Veronica corrected reflexively. Daniel met Harris's gaze, then Veronica's. Tonight I showed up with a cart and a key card that lets me into rooms no one uses after hours, he said. That is all that matters here. Logan gestured at the wall of screens. You see what broke in, he said. Whoever wrote that built it to dance around your ideas. It feels like someone grew it in the gaps left by Aegis. Daniel's eyes flicked to the worm's name on the main display. Phantom Worm. The code had a certain style, a certain flair, but it was not his. He felt no sting of rivalry, only a dull professional appreciation for the craft, and a stronger, more immediate need to not let it win. Your girls just helped us cage it, Priya said to him. Whatever you told them to stay away from, they went toward it and pulled us back from a cliff. Daniel looked down at Maya and Zoe. Their visitor stickers were wrinkled. Their cheeks were still damp. Their eyes were steady. He felt every pair of eyes in the room on him. Some curious, some calculating, some simply tired. They are not supposed to be a spectacle, he said quietly. They are just kids. Kids who see patterns my team did not, Priya said. Veronica stepped closer. Mr. Ruiz, she said, your daughters just saved my company. He looked at her. Her suit still looked perfect. Her hair had not loosened. But there was something in her face that had not been there when she appeared in the doorway of the war room. Less glass, more raw edges. They saved a lot more than that, Logan muttered. If those funds had walked. All of you did this, Daniel said. They did not do it alone. No, Harris said. But without what they built, we might still be bleeding. The room began to move again slowly. People turned back to tasks that could not wait. Refunds to verify, transaction paths to unwind, reports to draft. The engine of recovery restarted around the small still point where Daniel and his daughters stood. Veronica glanced at the nearest wall clock. The hands pointed past midnight. Her world had tilted several degrees in the last hour. She looked back at Daniel. Let me thank them properly, she said. You already did, he replied. You listened. I do not mean in front of a wall of screens, she said. I mean somewhere with chairs that do not swivel and lighting that does not make everyone look half dead. Maya blinked. Like a restaurant? She asked. Like a restaurant, Veronica said. There is a place near the waterfront that does decent pizza. You seem like pizza people. Maya brightened despite herself. We are absolutely pizza people, she said. Zoe glanced up at her father. You do not have to, Daniel said to Veronica. They do not need a spotlight. This is not a spotlight, she said. It is dinner, for two girls who walked into my worst day at work and turned it into something survivable. Her tone was lighter now, but there was no joke in it. Daniel hesitated. His instinct was to retreat to get his daughters out of this room, back behind doors he could control. Maya shifted the sole of her sneaker squeaking on the polished floor. It is just food, Dad, she said. We kind of earned a slice. Zoe's gaze held his. She did not say anything, but there was a quiet hope there. He looked at them, then at Veronica. The CEO of Hale Quantum Systems did not look like a headline or a distant speech on a stage. She looked tired and oddly open. It does not have to be fancy, he said. It will not be, she answered. I promise you that. All right, he said. One dinner. Maya let out a breath she had been holding. With olives, she added quickly. We can negotiate toppings, Veronica said. The crisis cleanup continued around them, screens gradually shifting from emergency red towards something calmer. The sound of typing filled the room once more. Daniel squeezed his daughter's shoulders. Come on, he said softly. Let us get out of the way. They walked toward the door together, past consoles and rolling chairs, and people who were already rewriting the story of the night into incident reports and technical summaries. As they reached the threshold, Daniel looked back once, just enough to see the wall of screens with their status boxes turning one by one from danger to contained. The pizza place was louder than Veronica expected. It sat near the waterfront, squeezed between a bait shop and a souvenir store that sold hoodies and mugs printed with rain jokes. A neon sign in the window flickered in red and blue, spelling out Marco's Pizza in a font that had never seen a branding consultant. Inside, the air smelled like tomato sauce, melted cheese, and the faint brine from the open door where the harbor wind slipped in. The floor was scuffed. The tables were mismatched. Someone had wrapped up napkins dispensers and duct tape to keep them from falling apart. Veronica liked it more than she thought she would. She arrived 5 minutes early, habit too ingrained to break. Her car had felt too quiet after the war room. The silence tried to creep under her ribs, so she filled it with radio chatter about foreign markets until she pulled into the lot. She stood just inside the door, letting her eyes adjust to the softer yellow light. It made everyone look gentler, less like problems to be solved, and more like people who laughed and spilled drinks and forgot umbrellas. Table for 4, the teen at the host stand asked. He wore a polo that did not quite fit and a name tag that said Kyle. Yes, she said. Reservation, ours son under Hale. He checked a sticky notepad instead of a computer. Yeah, booth by the window, he said. They are not here yet. You can wait or I can bring you water. Water is fine, Veronica replied. She slid into the booth, back to the wall view of the door and the harbor both. Old habits. She folded her hands on the table and tried not to look at her phone. The screen still held remnants of the night before. Email threads labeled incident and urgent. A text from Mark asking if she had slept. A missed call from her mother. She set the phone face down. The rain had eased outside. Drops clung to the glass, catching light from the street lamps. In the distance, the dark shape of a ferry moved across the water, windows glowing. The bell above the door jingled. Maya entered first, which somehow did not surprise Veronica. The girl moved like the world belonged to her until proven otherwise. She wore dark jeans, a hoodie with a cartoon planet on it, and the same sneakers from the night before. Her curls had been wrestled into a ponytail that was already escaping. Zoe followed quieter, hugging a worn backpack to her chest, despite the fact that this was dinner and not school. Her hair was braided neatly down her back. She scanned the room in one sweep, registering exits layout faces. Daniel came in last. He had changed, but not by much. Jeans instead of uniform pants, a navy shirt with the sleeves pushed up. His expression held a wariness that did not match the casual clothes. Maya spotted Veronica and waved with her whole arm. "Hi," she said, half jogging to the booth. "We are not late, right?" "You are right on time," Veronica said. Maya slid into the seat across from her. Zoe hesitated, then sat beside her sister, leaving the space opposite open for their father. Daniel approached the table with a nod. "Thank you for inviting us," he said. "You did not have to." "I wanted to," Veronica said, "and I usually get what I want." He huffed something like a laugh and took the seat. Kyle reappeared, set down 4 sweating glasses of water and a basket of garlic knots, slick with butter and herbs. "Your server will be right with you," he said, and vanished again. Maya reached for a knot, then paused and glanced at her father. Daniel tilted his head toward the basket, permission given. She grabbed 2. "So," Maya said, mouth already half full, "do all CEO dinners happen in pizza places, or is this special because we rescued 3-point-something billion dollars? "Maya," Daniel said. "It was 3.08, Zoe said quietly, "at peak risk." Veronica felt her lips twitch. "I do not usually invite people to dinner for doing their job," she said. "You did something that was not in any description. I thought that warranted carbohydrates." Maya grinned. "Best reward system," she said. The server appeared a woman in her 30s with a nose ring and an easy smile. "What can I get you all?" she asked. "We have a special on the margarita tonight, and the kitchen is in a good mood." Maya sat up straighter. "Large pepperoni with black olives," she said. "Please." Zoe shifted. "Can we do half and half?" she asked. "Half with mushrooms, no olives." The server wrote it all down without blinking. "And for the grown-ups?" she asked. "I will have whatever they are having," Veronica said. "Surprise me." "Same," Daniel added. "Living dangerously bistro," the server said. "I like it. Drinks, sodas maybe." Maya opened her mouth. "Water," Daniel said gently. She closed it again with a sigh. "Still worth it," she muttered. When the server left, Veronica wrapped her hands around her water glass. The condensation cooled her fingers. "You have good instincts," she said to the girls. "In there." "It did not feel like instincts," Zoe said. "It felt obvious." "Obvious for you," Veronica said. "Not for everyone." Maya kicked her heel lightly against the booth. "We are not supposed to play with polymorphic stuff," she admitted. "Dad told us. We just read about it, watched talks, tried little demos. Nothing with real money, nothing that touched anyone." Daniel cleared his throat. "They are understating how much time they spend in that world," he said. "I tried to put limits. I did not want them to think code was a toy. But it is hard to keep kids away from something they are naturally good at." "You are more than naturally good," Veronica said. Maya beamed. Zoe ducked her head. "Are we in trouble at your company?" Zoe asked. "For being in the war room." "Technically, you bypassed several security policies," Veronica said. Maya squirmed. "That sounds like trouble," she said. Veronica lifted one shoulder. "I reserve the right to update policies when reality changes," she said. "What happened last night was not by the book. Any book." The girls relaxed a little. The server brought sodas anyway, setting one in front of each child with a conspiratorial wink that suggested she did not always take parental edicts too seriously. Daniel started to protest, then let it go. Maya took a long sip through the straw. "So," she said, eyes sparkling, "what made you start Hale Quantum Systems? Did you wake up one day and go, 'I will make a giant digital vault and put the whole world in it'?" "Maya," Daniel said again. "It is a fair question," Veronica said. She leaned back, considering the ceiling tiles for a moment. "I started it because I wanted to prove I could," she said. "I wanted to prove I could build something nobody could ignore. That if my name was on the door, people would have to take me seriously." "Because you are a woman," Maya said. "Because I was a woman," Veronica agreed. "Because I was young. Because I came from a house where the person most people took seriously was my father." She paused. She did not usually say these things out loud. They lived in silent file folders in her head. He used to tell me that the only safe way to move through the world was not to need anyone, she said. Zoe frowned. Is that true? Zoe asked. It is one way, Veronica said. It is not a fun way. You do not look like you have fun a lot, Maya said, then slapped a hand over her own mouth. Sorry, that sounded rude in my head too. Veronica laughed, the sound surprising her. It is accurate, she said. I have not prioritized fun. Maya relaxed. You look different tonight, she said. More like a person, less like a boss in a video game. I will take that as a compliment, Veronica replied. The pizza arrived steaming on a metal stand. The server scattered plates and extra napkins, then retreated to another table. Maya grabbed a slice from the pepperoni and Olive's side. Cheese stretched in strings. Zoe carefully took a mushroom-only slice and waited for the cheese to stop sliding before taking a bite. Daniel watched them for a moment, then took his own hands moving with a slight stiffness that said the previous night had not left his body yet. Veronica lifted a slice of the grease warm on her fingers. She took a bite. The crust was crisp at the edges, soft in the middle. The sauce had a hint of sweetness, the olives sharp and briny. You were right, she said. This was a good idea. Maya pointed at Daniel with her crust. Dad used to eat worse, she said, back when he worked at the other place. The other place, Veronica repeated. Sentinel, Zoe said. Before. Daniel set his slice down. You do not have to tell your entire life story over pizza, he told the girls. Maya chewed thought, then turned to Veronica. Is it okay if I ask, she said, about him? I know some things. I do not know everything. It is your story, Veronica said to Daniel. You decide who hears it. He wiped his hands on a napkin, slowly buying a little time. Sentinel Dynamics was a security firm, he said. I worked there for years. I liked puzzles, systems, figuring out how bad things could happen and how to stop them. Like last night, Maya said. Like last night, he agreed, only with fewer kids in the war room. He took a breath. I met their mother there, he said. Rachel. The name moved through his head, but he did not say it out loud yet. She was smarter than me, he said, and a faint smile touched his mouth. She pretended not to be for the first 6 months, then stopped pretending. Zoe watched his face closely. You never talk about her like this, she said quietly. I did not know if I could, he admitted. The restaurant noise filled the space between words for a few seconds. A family at the next table laughed at something. Someone dropped a fork. In the kitchen, a pan clanged against another. One night, he said, we were all at the office late. There was a patch window. Deployment had to be timed just right. The girls were younger. They liked coming to the office. There were snacks and swivel chairs. Maya's gaze dropped to the table. She knew this part of the story. Not all of it, but enough. She called around 7, he said. Said she would come pick us up, take us to dinner. There was this little Italian place they loved. He looked at his hands. I told her I needed 1 more hour, he said. Just 1. Finish the deployment, lock it down. I told her to go ahead without us if she got hungry. He swallowed. She did not make it, he said. Veronica sat very still. The harbor light caught on the edges of her hair. A drunk driver ran a red light 2 blocks from the office, Daniel said. Hit her car on the side. The police said it was quick. They said she did not suffer. People always say things like that when they have nothing better to offer. Zoe's fingers closed around her fork. Her knuckles were pale. When they called me, Daniel said, I was sitting at a terminal watching a progress bar tick from 93% to 94. I thought it was the monitoring team. It was not. Maya wiped at her eye with the back of her wrist. I know the facts, she said, the way you just said them. But it sounds different when you say the pictures. Daniel nodded once. For a long time, he said, my brain wrote it as a simple equation. If I had left early, if I had gone home when I said I would, she would not have been on that road at that time. Therefore, he did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. It felt like my work killed her, he said. Veronica's chest tightened. Your work did not touch that car, she said. The man behind the other wheel did. Logically, Daniel said, I know that. I can map the responsibility chart. I can point to the point in the diagram where the fault actually sits. The drunk driver, the missing guardrail, all of it. He looked up at her. Guilt does not listen to logic, he said. She held his gaze. I am familiar with that bug, she said. He blinked at the word choice, then huffed a soft breath that might have been a laugh. So, I quit, he said. 3 weeks after the funeral, cashed out what we had. Set up something for the girls. I took the first job that had nothing to do with ports and packets and attack surfaces. You took a job cleaning offices, Veronica said. I thought if I kept my hands off keyboards, nothing I did could hurt anyone again, he answered. I thought I could outrun the version of me who loved this work. Zoe traced a circle of condensation on her water glass. You still loved it, she said. I did, he said, and I hated that I did. He looked at Veronica. They kept coding, he said, behind my back, hiding laptops and blankets, sneaking books home from the library. I caught them once building a little encryption game. I reacted badly. We did not touch it for weeks after that, Maya said. Then we did, quietly. We did not want to make him sadder, Zoe added. Daniel shook his head. I thought I was protecting them from a world that took their mother, he said. Instead, I taught them that the thing their brains loved most was something to be ashamed of. Veronica thought about her own father, about the unspoken rule that needing anything made you weak, about how she had built a career around the absence of need. The server stopped by to refill their water. The conversation paused, pockets of silence folding around the words already said. Maya cleared her throat. Yesterday, she said, when we saw that worm, it felt like every book we read and every tiny program we wrote was lining up and pointing at one thing, like, this is what you do now. We knew Dad would freak out, Zoe said. We did it anyway. Daniel glanced at Veronica. When I walked into that room and saw them at a console, he said, I thought my heart was going to stop. For a second, I saw hospital corridors again. He let out a slow breath. Then I saw what they had done, he said, and I realized they were not dragging me back into a life I had left. They were showing me a different way through it. Veronica did not answer right away. She watched the twin reflections in the window, fairy lights, street lamps, 3 faces across from her, thrown back at her from the glass. You know, she said, if you had been in that war room as staff, not as the guy with the mop, you would have seen that pattern too. Maybe, he said, maybe not. I was good at some things. I do not know if I ever saw it with their clarity. He reached for his slice again, then stopped. Either way, he said, I never thought the path back to any of that would run through a janitor badge. Life is not great at roadmaps, Veronica said. Maya picked a stray olive off her plate. So, she said, looking between them, does that mean you might touch a keyboard for work again someday? On purpose. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. Veronica watched him. There was a question on her tongue that had nothing to do with last night and everything to do with the way he had held his daughters in that bright, cold room. She took a sip of water instead, letting the moment settle, letting the sound of the harbor and the clatter of dishes and the murmur of other conversations weave around the 4 of them. The question finally pushed past Veronica's teeth, while Daniel was still deciding whether to reach for another slice. If you could do it differently, she said, would you ever work in security again, on your terms? He looked up, caught off guard. Maya and Zoe both froze, attention snapping to him as if she had flipped a switch. That is a big question to hide between olives, he said. It is not hidden, she replied. I am putting it in the center of the table. He glanced at his daughters. Maya had sauce on her chin and an expression that said yes, absolutely, obviously. Zoe had her hands folded around her glass eyes, steady waiting. I do not know if I can sit in front of that kind of code and not smell asphalt and hear sirens, he said slowly. My brain hooks things together that do not belong together. Veronica nodded. I understand that kind of wiring, she said, but last night you were in that room. You did not fall apart. I was looking at them, he said, not the screens. He tipped his chin toward the twins. They were calm, he said, focused. I borrowed that. You did more than borrow, Zoe said. Maya leaned forward. If you hate it, you could walk away again, she said, but you would at least know. Veronica rested her elbows lightly on the table. I am not asking you to move back into a server closet, she said. I am asking you to consider doing some consulting with Hale. Small projects, controlled. You set the limits. Daniel blinked. You want to hire the janitor, he said. I want to hire the person who designed a framework my competitors still cannot fully copy, she said. The janitor part is optional. Maya elbowed Zoe under the table. Told you, she whispered. He is Batman. Zoe murmured, Batman is a billionaire. Dad cleans up other people's coffee. He also saves cities at night, Maya said. Daniel shook his head, almost smiling. You do not even know if my skills are current, he said to Veronica. You spent 10 minutes in my war room and recognized the work of something that was built to exploit your blind spots, she said. You raised 2 people who saw patterns we missed. I am willing to gamble that whatever rust you think you have is surface level. She hesitated, then added, And there is something else I want to build. Zoe listened more closely. She was always alert for that word. At Hale, we recruit from the usual places, Veronica said. Top schools, known programs. We are missing people who think sideways, people like them. She nodded toward the twins. I want to start a program for young coders, she said. Not a marketing stunt, a real pipeline, scholarships, mentors, hard problems that will not wreck the world if they are solved creatively. Maya's eyes lit up. You mean like a secret academy, she said. The opposite of secret, Veronica said. Visible, resourced, protected. Zoe tilted her head. And we would be in it, she asked. You would be the first names on the list, Veronica said. Daniel was quiet. He looked at his daughters, then at Veronica. Why? He asked. Because I watched my father hoard power and knowledge, she said. He thought giving anything away made him smaller. I do not want to run my company like that. She met his gaze. And because watching you hold your daughters in that room last night did something to me, she said. The way they looked at you, like you were the whole frame, not just part of the picture. That made him look down. His thumb traced a ring of moisture on the table. You could say no, she added. I know, he answered. He took a breath that seemed to travel a long way. I can try, he said. Consulting, project by project. If it becomes too much, I step back. You get to define too much, she said. Maya let out a small cheer. We have to celebrate, she said. Can we get dessert? They have tiramisu here. I saw it on the board. Just because I might do one project does not mean we buy the whole menu, Daniel said. It sort of does, she argued. Veronica signaled the server. Get the tiramisu, she said. Call it a signing bonus. The weeks that followed did not feel like a montage to Daniel, but if someone had watched them from a distance, they might have looked like one. Morning light poured into the apartment more often because he stopped avoiding it. The mop still waited for him at Hale, but now so did a temporary badge with a different color stripe. The first time he walked into the war room as a consultant, not as the man pushing a cleaning cart past it, his palms were damp. His heart thudded in a quick, uneven pattern. He smelled coffee and ozone, and remembered sitting in a different operations center years ago, Rachel's laughter floating over the din. Priya met him at the door. We have a low-risk project, she said. Sandbox only, no live money. We figured we would not throw you into dragons on day one. Appreciated, he said. She led him to a workstation. The chair was comfortable. The keyboard was standard issue. The monitor lit his face in cold light. His hands hovered over the keys for a moment. That old familiar itch built under his skin. Fear sat beside it. Veronica stood a few steps away. She did not hover. She did not introduce him to the room with fanfare. She just nodded once as their eyes met. If you need to step out, you do, she said quietly. No questions. He nodded. Then he rested his fingers on the home keys and began to type. The first few lines were stiff, his movements careful. Then muscle memory started to surface. The structure of a firewall rule set unfolded in his mind. He adjusted for new architectures, new threats he had only read about in trade journals he pretended not to care about. He wrote a comment at the top of the file. For Rachel and for the girls. A breath left his lungs that he had not realized he was holding. Away from the glow of monitors, Veronica's life also shifted by small degrees. She still worked late. That part did not vanish. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, her calendar gained a colored block that Mark had never seen before. School event, it said, or science fair, or simply Rui's girls. The first time she walked into the multi-purpose room at Maya and Zoe's school, the air smelled like glue sticks and overheated projector. Folding chairs lined the walls. Parents clustered in small groups, some in suits, some in worn hoodies, all looking a little awkward. Maya stood by a trifold board covered in hand-drawn diagrams of a simulated trash sorting system. A tablet showed a model arm tipping colored blocks into different bins. Our model reduces contamination by 42%, Maya explained to a teacher, if the sensors do not get jammed by banana peels. Zoe waited for her turn with a different class. Her project was a quiet program that flagged potentially dangerous allergens in cafeteria recipes based on ingredient lists and supplier data. Veronica watched from the doorway for a moment, then stepped closer. When Maya spotted her, she lit up. You came, she said. You invited me, Veronica said. I try not to waste invitations. She listened as Maya rattled through the logic of her sorting algorithm. She asked questions, real ones, not the kind she posed in boardrooms to catch someone unprepared. When Zoe presented, Veronica stood behind Daniel in the small cluster of adults. He wore a shirt that did not quite fit his shoulders and an expression that mixed pride and nerves. On the whiteboard behind Zoe, Neat handwriting laid out the flow of the program. It flags patterns that humans might miss when they are tired, Zoe said. It does not replace people. It just taps them on the shoulder. Daniel leaned closer to Veronica. Why does that sound familiar? He murmured. Because that is what you used to do for a living, she said. He huffed quietly. At Hale, the gifted program took shape faster than any initiative Mark had ever seen her push through. She commandeered an unused floor with plenty of glass and light. Contractors installed whiteboards on every wall. Tables replaced cubicles. Beanbags appeared, much to Veronica's private skepticism and Maya's loud delight. She hired a director who had once dropped out of a top university to build an open-source encryption library and never regretted it. On the first day, a small group of kids filed in. Some wore thick glasses. Some wore hoodies 2 sizes too big. All carried laptops like extra limbs. Maya and Zoe walked in together, badges clipped to their shirts. The badges did not say intern or visitor. They said participant. Veronica stood at the back watching as they claimed a table, opened their machines, and disappeared into a problem about route optimization that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with efficiency and elegance. She felt something settle inside her, a click that had nothing to do with keycards or door locks. Not everything transformed in clean lines. One Saturday evening she tried to cook. Daniel had invited her over to their apartment for dinner. He had meant that he would cook as usual. She arrived early with groceries anyway. I can chop something, she said. I am not completely useless in a kitchen. He raised an eyebrow. You have stock options, he said. You do not need knife skills. She rolled her eyes and reached for a cutting board. 10 minutes later, there were onion pieces on the floor, a suspicious scorch mark on the side of a pot, and the faint smell of something that should not be coming from a pan of boiling water. How did you set water on fire? Daniel asked, half horrified, half amused. I followed your instructions, she said. Mostly. I said simmer, he replied, not summon. Maya leaned in the doorway laughing. This is worse than the time Dad tried to make pancakes with protein powder, she said. Zoe rescued the pot with calm efficiency, turning off the burner and moving it to a cold part of the stove. Abort mission, she said. Order pizza. They ended up sitting on the living room floor, 3 cardboard boxes open between them. Movie paused on the first streaming menu, because choosing something to watch had turned out to be harder than choosing a security protocol. There is a pattern, Daniel said lightly, biting into a slice. Every time something goes wrong in a kitchen, we end up with pizza. Some bugs are worth keeping, Veronica said. Maya raised her slice. To bugs that do not crash the system, she said. Zoe clinked the edge of her own slice against Maya's. Daniel looked over at Veronica. Her hair was down for once, falling over her shoulder. She had sauce at the corner of her mouth. She noticed his gaze, wiped it with a napkin, and did not look away. Thank you, he said quietly. For nearly burning your kitchen, she asked. For seeing them, he said. For seeing me. She opened her mouth, then closed it, the words rearranging themselves before they came out. Thank you for reminding me that there is life outside a glass office, she said instead. The movie never started. They talked instead about small things and big ones, the conversation looping and curving like code refactored into something cleaner each time it ran. Rain had taken the night off. The small balcony outside Daniel's living room faced a slice of the city that never quite slept. Streetlights washed the brick walls in a soft orange glow. Farther out, downtown shimmered in whites and blues, Hale's Tower, a familiar shape on the horizon. It was late enough that most windows in the neighboring buildings were dark. A few still burned rectangles of yellow cut into the night. Veronica sat on a folding chair with a mug of tea cupped in both hands. The steam smelled faintly of mint. The air was cool against her face, cooled further every time a breeze lifted the hem of her sweater. Inside, the sounds of rinsed plates and running water drifted through the half-open sliding door. Maya and Zoe had been sent to get ready for bed. They had obeyed in the noisiest way possible, arguing down the hallway about which robot in their favorite show would win in a fight. When they were smaller, they thought the vacuum cleaner was a robot, Daniel said as he stepped onto the balcony. He carried his own mug coffee instead of tea. The scent joined the mint in the air. They would follow it around like it was a pet, he added. We had to keep them from riding it. It is auditioning to be a robot, Veronica said. It just has limited range. He smiled and sank into the chair beside hers. The balcony was narrow. Their knees were close enough that one shift could brush them together. For a while they watched the city. It looks different from here, she said finally. From Hale, he asked. From my office, she said. Up there it is a map. Down here it feels like a place. He studied her profile. The city light softened the angles of her face. "You could have had a balcony at your apartment," he said. "I did not choose my place for the view," she replied. "I chose it for proximity to the office and security features that impressed a very specific kind of consultant." "Sounds on brand, ba," he said. She took a sip of tea. The mug warmed her palms. "I used to love that office," she said. "The glass, the height, it felt like proof." "Proof of what?" he asked. "That I had made it far enough from where I started," she said. "That no one could shove me back." She watched a car crawl along the street below headlights smearing on the wet pavement from an earlier shower. "Turns out glass is not the same thing as safety," she added. Daniel considered that. He turned his mug in his hands, the ceramic scraping softly against his fingertips. "They look at you like you built that whole tower with your bare hands," he said. "They look at you like you hung the moon," she said. He huffed. "They are not very objective," he said. "Neither are your engineers when they talk about your old papers," she replied. "People are allowed to be biased toward the things that keep them safe." Something in his shoulders eased. Inside, a cupboard closed a little too hard. Maya's voice floated out muffled. "Zoe, you took my charger." "I did not. You misplaced it." "That is slander." Daniel raised his voice just enough to carry. Teeth brushed, devices down. Two reluctant okay answers came back almost in unison. Their voices receded down the hall. "They are good kids," Veronica said. "They are chaos wrapped in sneakers," he said. "But yes." The quiet that followed was comfortable, threaded with the familiar small sounds of the building. Somewhere below, someone turned up a television show. A distant siren wailed and faded. Veronica stared at the mug in her hands. "There is something I should say," she murmured. Daniel tensed instinctively. "If this is about the water fire, I have already processed my trauma," he said. She smiled despite herself. "Not that," she said. "Something less practical." His hand tightened around his mug. He set it on the concrete between his feet, as if he needed both hands free for whatever was coming. "All right," he said. She exhaled, watching the mist of her breath disappear into the dark. "I am not very good at this," she said. "Whatever this is." "Talking?" he asked. "You seem fine at talking." "Talking about anything where I cannot use bullet points," she said. "Where I cannot fire someone and move on." He waited. He did not rush. He did not fill the gaps with jokes, although he looked tempted. "In that war room," she said, "I kept thinking about losing everything. The company, the trust, the reputation I have spent years building. My brain ran every scenario at once." "I was there," he said quietly. "I know," she said. "But afterward in the car, all I could see was you holding them. Not the numbers, not the screens. Just you shaking, and them looking at you like you were the only thing that mattered." He swallowed. "Yeah," he said. "That is burned in my head too." "It made me realize something uncomfortable," she said. "That I had built this entire life to prove I did not need anyone, and it was very empty of things like that. Like someone shaking in a war room with two kids clinging to him," he said. "Like family," she replied softly. The word felt strange in her mouth, like a foreign language she had not practiced in years. He watched her, his expression guarded but open enough. "There is a part of me," she said, "that wants to keep you all at arm's length. To say thank you, write a check, build a program, treat last night like a business transaction, and move on." "And the other part?" he asked. "The other part keeps showing up here," she said. "Eating pizza on your floor, failing at soup, sitting on your balcony instead of at my desk." She glanced at him. "I do not do that," she said. "Not with anyone." He took that in. "You are saying this because," he prompted gently. "Because it feels dishonest not to," she said. "Because these nights matter to me more than they should if we are just CEO and consultant, or woman who runs a company and man who cleans her floors." The corner of his mouth lifted. "Former man who cleans floors," he said. "I am branching out." She breathed out a laugh. "You know what I mean," she said. She turned her head fully to face him. "I am trying to say that I care about you," she said, "and about them. More than is wise for someone who signs as many contracts as I do." His first response was not verbal. His shoulders sagged with something like relief. His hands loosened against his knees. "I was trying very hard not to be the first one to say that," he said. "Why?" she asked. "Because my track record with the people I love is complicated," he said. "Because I did not want you to feel like I was asking for more than you could give." She frowned slightly. "You think I cannot give," she said. "I know that you give in other currencies," he replied. "Time, focus, those are not small." He shifted in his chair so he was angled toward her. "I care about you too," he said. "Have for a while. Somewhere between you walking into the war room and you burning water, the needle moved." She made a small sound that might have been a snort. That is a terrible metric, she said. It is honest, he said. I saw you under both kinds of pressure. You did not run either time. He grew serious again. I do not know what this is supposed to look like, he said. I do not have a template for dating someone who has an executive floor, while I am still figuring out how to stand being back in a server room. I do not have a template for dating at all, she said, so we are even. They sat with that. You know the bug you talked about, she said, the one that ignores logic and eats at you anyway. Guilt, he said. Yes, she replied. I have one too. It tells me that if I let anyone close, I am handing them a weapon. He considered her for a long moment. And yet you keep handing Maya your phone so she can show you a video, he said. You let Zoe correct your algebra when she checks your meeting notes. I do not let her, Veronica said. She just does. You are handing us things without noticing, he said. Maybe the bug is getting patched without you writing the code on purpose. She stared at him. Who taught you to say things like that? She asked. 2 kids and a lot of late nights, he said. Also a lifetime of debugging. He reached out slow enough that she could stop him, and rested his hand over hers where it gripped the mug. His skin was warm. Her fingers tightened on reflex, then eased. Can I kiss you? He asked. She had not been asked that in years. Most of the men she met in her circles assumed either that she was uninterested or that pushing past her boundaries was part of some game. Yes, she said. He leaned in. The balcony chair creaked slightly under him. Their foreheads touched first, a small bump that made them both huff a breath. Then his mouth met hers. It was not fireworks. It was not some grand sweep of music. It was careful, almost tentative at first, then steadier when she did not pull back. His hand slid from her fingers to her wrist, then to her shoulder, anchoring them both. She tasted coffee and the faint hint of sugar. He tasted mint and something sharp that might have been the remnants of her nerves. Heat uncurling in her chest made her aware of the night around them. The city kept breathing. A car door slammed somewhere down the street. A window above them slid shut with a soft thud. When they parted, they stayed close breath, mingling. I like that, he said quietly. Good, she replied, because I do not kiss people for practice. He smiled against her hair. Noted, he said. Inside, a door creaked. Little footsteps padded down the hall. Maya's whisper was not quiet. I am just getting water, Zoe. It is a basic human right. Daniel lifted his head, eyes widening. Veronica stifled a laugh and pulled her hand away, settling back in her chair. Maya appeared in the doorway, saw them on the balcony, and froze. Oh, she said. Sorry, did not know this area was reserved. Get your water, Daniel said, voice mostly steady. She walked to the sink, filled a glass, and tried very hard not to look at the balcony again. Her shoulders shook once with suppressed energy. On her way back to the hallway, she paused. You are smiling again? She said to her father. I smile, he replied. Not like that, she said. Her gaze flicked to Veronica. You too, she added. Zoe's voice floated from down the hall. Maya stopped spying. Emit been spying, she said. I am hydrating, Maya insisted and disappeared. The apartment settled again. Daniel looked at Veronica. That did not feel like a crash, he said. No, she said. More like a stable update. He laughed low in his throat. Then maybe we keep iterating, he said. Carefully. Carefully, she agreed. They stayed on the balcony until their mugs were empty, and the night deepened. 2 people who had both made peace in their own ways with the idea that some bugs are not meant to be deleted, only understood and worked with. 2 years after the night of red screens, the war room was almost unrecognizable. The layout was the same. The walls still held the same massive panels. Consoles lined the floor in the same arc. But the room carried a different weight. Plants sat on top of a few low cabinets, leaves catching the cool light from the displays. Someone had pinned a cartoon about firewalls to a corkboard. A row of small framed photos lined a shelf near the back, team pictures, a candid shot of Priya asleep at a console with a blanket over her shoulders, a photo of a whiteboard covered in colorful diagrams with the caption, Not Chaos, Design. In the largest photo, 4 people stood in front of the main screen. 2 adults in the center, 2 kids on either side, all windblown and squinting into the sun. Behind them, the faint line of an ocean. Daniel stood in the doorway for a moment and took it in. The war room hummed as usual. Monitors glowed. People spoke in low bursts. The atmosphere was focused, but the sharp edge of constant crisis was gone. They were ready, not afraid. You are supposed to be in the middle, a voice hissed from behind one of the support pillars. He pretended not to hear. You are terrible at subtlety, another voice answered under its breath. He smiled. Maya, Zoe, he said quietly, you are not as invisible as you think. Two heads popped into view from behind the pillar. Maya, now 11, had grown taller, her curls longer, and barely contained by an elastic. Zoe, also taller, had that slightly stretched look of kids who had shot up faster than their clothes. Maya's eyes were bright. You ruined the dramatic reveal, she whispered. You were going to make him stand in the doorway forever, Zoe said. That is not efficient. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you want to risk mocking the person who holds the keys to the network? He asked. You would never disconnect your own daughters, Maya said. You say that now, he replied. Wait until you are teenagers. Maya moved closer, lowering her voice. We set everything up, she said. Priya confirmed the display. Mark promised to stall if she gets suspicious. She does not suspect anything, Zoe said. She thinks you are doing a security retrospective for the leadership team. Daniel nodded once. Positions then, he said. You two stay out of sight until I give the signal. Which is, Maya prompted. When she says she hates red screens, he said. Maya grinned. Perfect, she said. They darted off, disappearing behind a bank of consoles, whispering to each other as they went. Daniel stepped fully into the room. A few heads turned, offering small nods, then went back to their work. The badge on his lanyard read, Head of Cyber Defense. It still looked strange to him sometimes, less strange every day. He walked up to the central platform and looked at the front wall. Priya had kept the room exactly the way he had asked. No active alerts, no panicked colors, just a set of graphs idling in calm blues and greens and a black background waiting for the content he was about to cue. She is on her way, Priya said quietly, joining him. Mark sent a message. Elevator is at 38. Thank you, he said. You sure you want to do it here? She asked. He nodded. This is where everything pivoted, he said. She tilted her head. You going to cry? She asked. Probably, he said. You going to tease me if I do? Definitely, she said. She squeezed his arm once, then moved back to her console. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, setting the presentation on standby. 30 seconds later, the door to the war room opened. Veronica stepped in, the familiar cut of her suit jacket moving with her. Her hair was still blonde, still pulled back, but a strand had escaped at her temple. She did not tuck it in. Her badge hung on a thin chain instead of a clip, the plastic catching the light when she walked. She scanned the room the way she always did, a quick sweep that checked every station and the front wall. When her gaze landed on Daniel, her shoulders softened. You said there was something on the security roadmap I had to see in person, she said. I cleared an hour and rescheduled 3 calls. This better beat quarterly forecasts. It will not beat them, he said. It will be more useful. High bar, she said. He gestured toward the main screen. Priya, he said. Lights, please. She dimmed the room with a flick of a switch. The glow from the wall became the main source of light. For a heartbeat, the screen stayed black. Then an image appeared. It was a photo slightly grainy, taken from a high angle. Veronica recognized it immediately. The war room, 2 years younger, screens burning red, people clustered in knots. In the center, a woman with tight shoulders and tighter jaw eyes fixed on the wall. Herself. Another image slid into view beside it. Same room, different night. The photo from the shelf. Her, Daniel, Maya, and Zoe at the beach. All 4 of them had sand stuck to their legs. The twins were mid-laugh mouths, open teeth showing. The contrast made something in her chest flip. She glanced at Daniel. Is this your idea of a performance review? She asked. Something like that, he said. The display shifted again. Now the rooftop view from Hale's tower filled the screen. City lights rain on glass. A shot taken from inside her office looking out. Then it faded into the view from Daniel's balcony, the same tower in the distance, but the angle reversed. There were no captions, no bullet points, just images. The motion drew a quiet murmur from the room. These are not regulations, she said softly. No, he said, this is context. He took a breath. When I first came here, I thought the only way I could exist in this building was with a mop in my hand, he said. I did not think I would ever sit at a console again. I did not think I would stand in front of this wall for anything but an accident with a broken trash bag. A few people chuckled quietly. In the last 2 years, he went on, we rebuilt a lot together, not just systems, cultures, habits, expectations. On the screen, a graph appeared. It was not money. It was not transaction volume. It was a steady climb of something labeled incident response time, with a line trending down in the right way. Below it, another line labeled team retention arched upward. We got faster, he said. We got better. We kept more of our people. We stopped treating burnout like a rite of passage. Veronica watched him. His voice carried clearly not just to her, but to everyone in the room. He turned to face her fully. Personally, he said, I also stopped running. The screen behind him changed once more. Now it showed a candid photo someone had taken without them noticing. Veronica at a folding chair in a multi-purpose room, leaning forward as Maya pointed animatedly at a science project. Daniel sat beside her smiling. In the background, a banner on the wall read, Lincoln Middle Science Fair. She recognized the moment. She still had the program from that day. She became aware of the quiet in the room. Her staff had pivoted in their chairs, attention on them. No one looked bored, no one looked impatient. Veronica, he said. Her name sounded less formal than usual in his mouth. She felt the difference. This room used to be the place where I thought everything ended, he said, where the worst thing in my life got a match, where my girls walked into a fire I wanted to keep them away from. He nodded toward the dark corners where he knew two pairs of eyes were peeking out. It is also where I watched you choose trust over control for the first time, he said. You let two kids sit down at your console. Priya wiped at one eye quickly and pretended she was adjusting her glasses. This is the room where my life turned instead of stopped, Daniel said. Where yours did too, I think, even if you will not put that in an annual report. She felt something sting behind her eyes. He reached into his pocket. Her breath caught. He dropped to one knee. The sound of fabric brushed against the floor. The war room that had held shouts and alarms and the click of frantic keys held one long exhale from a few dozen people at once. Daniel, she said. Her voice came out softer than she intended. He opened a small velvet box. Inside, a ring caught the light from the screens. I used to think broken meant finished, he said quietly. That once something cracked, you could patch it a little, but it would never be worth much again. His gaze rose to meet hers. Then I met you properly, he said. And I kept watching you take all the sharp, shattered parts of your life and arrange them into something that could hold other people up. He drew in a steadying breath. You taught me that some systems get better with failure, he said. That stress tests show where we need to reinforce, not where we need to abandon. A faint laugh rippled around the room. You did not just give me a job, he added. You gave me a way to live with my ghosts instead of hiding from them. You gave my girls a place to be exactly as bright as they are without shrinking. He held up the ring, his hand not quite steady. So, I am asking you, he said, as a man who has run enough worst-case scenarios to know there is no perfect time and no perfectly secure plan. He smiled small and real. Will you marry me? He asked. Will you let me stand next to you when the screens are red and when they are green? Will you let me be home for you and for them? For a moment, the room blurred. The edges of her vision softened. All she could see clearly was his face and the ring and the ghost of her own reflection she remembered from a different night, on a different wall of glass. Maya broke the spell from the side, her whisper far too loud. Say yes, she hissed. Zoe tugged at her sleeve. You said we would wait for the signal, Zoe whispered back. This is the signal, Maya replied. Veronica laughed, the sound shaken and full. She stepped forward, feeling her heartbeat in her fingertips. Get up, she said. His face flickered, hope and fear colliding for a second. She shook her head. I am not saying no, she said. I just do not want you down there while I do. He stood slowly, the box still open between them. She took the ring from its indented cushion. Yes, she said. Of course, yes. The room exhaled again. Someone clapped. Then everyone did. Veronica slid the ring onto her finger. It settled as if it had always been meant to sit there. Maya and Zoe shot out from their hiding place and collided with both of them at once. Arms wrapped around waists. Someone's elbow dug into a rib. Laughter overlapped. You did it, Maya said, nearly shouting in his ear. No pressure at all, he said. Zoe looked up at Veronica. Does this mean we can call you Veronica forever? She asked. Or is there a new protocol? We can discuss naming conventions later, Veronica said. For now, you can call me whatever feels right. Family? Maya said immediately. The words settled around them like a new kind of code, one that did not need compiling to start working. 6 months later, the office that had once felt like a glass cage held a new photograph. It sat on Veronica's desk beside the old ones. 4 figures on a beach again this time, with a lopsided sand structure in front of them that was clearly meant to be a server farm. Maya had labeled one tower firewall in crooked letters. Zoe had labeled another home. The morning sun cut across the frame. Outside the window, the city moved in its usual currents. Traffic flowed. Ferries crossed the water. Clouds rolled in from the sound, promising rain later. Veronica sipped her coffee and let her gaze drift from the skyline to the picture. Her calendar for the day was full. Strategy sessions, a call with regulators, a check-in with the gifted program director, a reminder at the bottom in Mark's handwriting that read, "Dinner at Rui's house, do not be late." Her phone buzzed once with a text. "Maya, we tested a new pancake algorithm, low probability of disaster, high probability of syrup." Another followed. "Zoe, translation, we did not burn anything this time." Veronica smiled. She picked up her keys, the metal cool in her hand, and listened for the small, satisfying sound they made as they turned in the lock when she left the office. Later, when she opened the front door of the house she now shared with Daniel and the girls, the echo of that sound would answer her from the inside. The smell of something warm would drift from the kitchen. Voices would overlap. Someone would complain about homework. Someone else would ask her to look at a line of code. The towers would still stand outside. The systems would still run. The world would still ask things of her. Inside, there would be a table that always had 4 chairs, a balcony that looked out over the same city, but from a different angle, and a life that had not erased any of the old pain, only written new functions around it, until the whole program behaved in a way she could live with. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.